Hey everybody, another GMG review. Today we're taking a look at Epic Warpath, the Essentials box. This is a new, just delivering from crowdfund, 10 to 15 millimeter game. I think it's 10 millimeter. It looks roughly 10 millimeter from Mantic Games, and takes their Mantic, sort of like the Dead Zone universe, the Zoneverse, and takes it, the Warpath game, we got Warpath as well, into a smaller scale for mass combat engagements in hard styrene plastics. So what I got to check out today is the Plague set from the crowdfunds. These are the Plague plastics. Now there are additional resin bits as well that you get as an add-on accessory, but I'm not going to show those off today because they're not a retail thing. And these come as part of the starter set as well. And I've got the Essentials pack here. Now the Essentials pack is the Rulebook, which comes bundled with all of the tokens for playing the game. So you have your combat tokens, your advanced Overwatch, and sprint tokens, and then all the other additional tokens like pinning tokens, blast templates, your initiative token, objective markers that you would use for the game, and like wound and damage markers as well. D8s, this uses the same sort of exploding D8 system as their other game systems like Dead Zone and Warpath, and then their command dice, which you'll roll to generate command points each turn. You have a pool of 3 black command dice that you always start with, so you're always getting between 0 and I think they have max 6, yeah, because there's a 2 side on there. And other colored command dice can come from your tactician units in your army. And this big rulebook. So first things first, let's look at the models. They come with some handy dandy bases, and they can be based in a variety of styles. Now there are small bases, puddle bases, because all of the infantry and large walkers come with puddle stands. So you can see that's a base. A puddle base is a circular base attached to the feet of the model that you clip off. They're all one piece. There's almost no mold lines on the sides. These are all obviously nice, fresh, clean molds. And every frame of which I think the starter comes with 6. Yeah, I have 6. Comes with 2 trucks, a tank, and a track, as well as 1 large walker, and then a variety of different infantry and large plague beasties that are on here. To make a good size army. We'll add up the points here in a minute, but you can see that the infantry are squatted up in 2s to 4s. So 2s would be things like bike style units, or the larger units like the big plague, I can't remember what phase they are, the big aberrants basically, whereas your squads of like the zombies and the smaller infantry and sort of like the zombie legionnaire guys and the command units would all be on these 4-man stands. So nice, simple, again, hard styrene plastic, easy to put together. You literally just clip them off and stick them on a base. You can use polystyrene cement to do so. And each of these frames, like I said, 4 vehicles, a walker, and a huge number of infantry, some large infantry, some small infantry. So I have basically I have 12 stands of these guys, the large aberrant style ones. I have 1 walker on each, which means I have 6 walkers. I have, it looks like, I'm trying to differentiate the zombies from the infantry, because it's like, these are the squad leaders, and then you get 2 infantry and a support guy on here. So this is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22. And the rest of these are zombies down here. So 22, so divide that by 4. So 5 stands, including or not including command. And then that means that there are 5 times 6 is 30 stands overall. And then a formation is usually 6 stands of guys. So that's like 5 formations worth of infantry for the ranged guys. And then of course zombies, we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, which means they're going to be in groups of 3. So, or groups of 6 as well. So that's 3 stands per frame times 6, 18 stands. So 3 units of the zombies. So a huge chunk of stuff is what I'm basically saying, and very flexible on the frames themselves. So last but not least, let's take a look at the rulebook. Now it's a 3rd rules, a 3rd background, and a 3rd all the army lists in the game. So first thing you kind of notice about this rulebook, obviously it's in full color. It is soft color or soft cover and perfect bound with glue. And the thing I'm reminded of most is the Epic Armageddon rulebook, because obviously that was kind of a, we're using the Epic title here. That was kind of a scale system for this type of game that was really popular. And this is an homage to that, I would say, in book design, because the actual layout of the book is very similar. We have rules in the front, then army lists for all 6 factions, and their complete army list for the Asterians, the Enforcers, the Forge Fathers, the GCPS, which is like a light version of the Enforcers, the light human infantry, the Marauders, which are an orc prototype, the Nameless, which are kind of like an intergalactic space bug, and the Plague, which are infested human zombies that are taken over by a virus. Think like the Flood in Halo. And then we have the background for all of these different factions as well, and a pile of art. Now they're doing some terrain for this as well, and the terrain sets are in hard plastic. There's like some prototypes I think available through the crowdfund, and you can see like in the photography in here. There's not a ton of photography, but for those that are here, you can see some of these framed buildings and stuff on the sides. So let's get into the game rules. What kind of game are we talking about here? Well, it's a unit card style game. So if you played GW games, it's pretty familiar. It's measured in inches, uses D8s with an exploding D8 system. The only bespoke dice are for the command points. And honestly, you could fudge these with D6s if you wanted to. Just like with a chart, basically. So if you have D8s at home, you're not necessarily going to need to buy them. And then your unit profile is a GW data slate style unit profile. Name of the unit, how many stands are in it, what type it is, because all the classifications, infantry, bike, tank, they're all going to have different sort of like ways they interact with the rules of the game. Their height, everything uses like a cube height system. And you can see right here in the back, we've got a chart for line of sight and line of fire. If you're 3 over something, then it does not block line of sight to you at all. So anything on top of this, it's completely obscured because you can see higher than the thing below you if you're ever 3 points higher. But basically it's to say what can see over what and what blocks line of sight to what. And you don't have to use like the visuals of cubes. You can just say like, oh, this is a 3 standing in front of a 2. You're taller than me, I can't see over you. And then it's unit strength. So the unit strength is basically, it's like objective control score in 40K. So it's how much does it contribute to holding an objective. The first number is for when it's above half of its starting like number of stands, and the second's if it's below. Then finally it's point value, because you're playing a point style game. 1,000 to 1,500 is probably a good starter game. 2,000 seems like it's about the average game size. It's speed in inches that it moves, so that's move or sprint. It's shoot value, it's assault value, that's what it has to roll in a D8 to hit. It's armor value, which is what you're gonna wound to damage it if someone damages you. So let's say you got hit 3 times. They'd roll D8s again, and every successive 6+ here would actually damage you. And then a save. Now, a save isn't common, but a save is like an after save that you get to roll. If your opponent's gotten damage through on you, you can make your save and see if you can shrug the damage off. Think of it like Feel No Pain in Warhammer 40,000. And then keywords like anti-grav obviously means that you can ignore certain types of terrain, you can move over units. You might have things, there's a whole stack basically of universal keywords that might change the way that you interact with the game rules. And they are all listed after the main core rule sets. That's the battlefield, army lists. So there's keywords, there we go. You can see things like anti-aircraft, you can ignore aircraft rules, blast, using the blast template, demolisher, you can take down buildings, drop keywords, so that means that you can exit a transport vehicle that has the fly keyword, so normally you can't get out of that, obviously. Indirect, you can fire blast weapons without line of sight. Heavy armor, when firing a unit with heavy armor, with weapons that don't have an AP value, have the number of dice unit rolls to damage the target, rounding down. So basically you just shrug off half the hits automatically. So lots of different keywords will like differentiate your unit styles, not just like the core hard stats. And then your weapons. They'll have a range. If it's A, it means assault, so you have to be engaged with the enemy to like physically engage to fight. How many dice you roll, and then any keywords that like sustained attack means you're gonna roll extra dice with the Dominator rifles. And that's it. Those are the core stats. So at a glance, it's real easy to know what you're doing with what, and the actual like interaction of how the turn activates and stuff is pretty simple. But this is a small scale mass combat game. They tend to make the core rules pretty simple. So we got our armies, friendly, enemy, and neutral elements. Scenarios might have some sometimes, and then just general. This is our universal terms like how to do line of sight. Again, the height's going to be really relevant here. Large targets, the benefits of elevation if you're 3 higher. And then we're into the rounds and game phases and turns. So pretty boilerplate stuff in the beginning, except for the bespoke dice. You need to know how those work. Command phase, you're going to roll your command dice. See how many points you have. You can spend points for a variety of things, like removing pin tokens, rerolling dice when you're attacking, activating and chain activating second units. Then you assign your action tokens. If something's in melee, it has to get a combat token because it's going to have to fight. It's locked in combat. Anybody else can get an Overwatch, Advance, or Sprint token, and they do exactly what you think they do. Overwatch is you get to fire before everybody else, but you don't move. Advance is on move and fire. Sprint token is you move your second movement value, but you don't get to shoot. Now, there's some mandatory tokens you place as well, and this happens during the command phase. You assign these. And they're open information. So like engaged units, like I said, they get a combat token because they can't get a shoot order, they're too busy fighting. Pin units, they get a pin marker and an advanced token. So units that are both pinned and engaged receive no token of any kind. So if you're pinned down and stuck, you're just turtling and getting beat up. And then finally, command units that are not pinned must be given both a sprint and an Overwatch token. So command units are really versatile, and they tend to get to activate more than once during a turn. So it makes like your character units be a little bit more heroic. And then you simultaneously reveal your hidden tokens after you roll for initiative. So rolling for initiative is just a D8 roll high, and then you're going to flip them over to show what everybody's got. And then command points and orders. Soldiers will work best if properly led. To simulate the SP's command points and orders represent your ability to get the most of your army. And these are the tactical orders available to everybody. Different factions might have different tactical orders that they can do based upon how they fight. You know, the fact that I can make zombies out of the dead, stuff like that. So 1, keep going, chain activate something. 2, it also costs a single command point. Fight on, after rolling to hit or to damage the target, you can rip 2 your dice. And then courage, clear pin marker. It's in the end phase. Roll for pin markers removal step before any of your dice are rolled. So instead of like risking rolling a nerve check to try and take pin markers off, you can just spend your command points to do it later on. And those are available to everybody. Obviously, your army is going to be unique based upon the tactical orders that you sometimes have access to. Movement phase, nice simple coherency. You just got to be within 6 inches of, a 6-inch cluster basically in every direction. So you're going to have to stay inside that zone. Makes it nice and easy to measure. And then moving, obviously you just move model by model and keep yourself in coherency. Don't move off the table. End of an activation. After unit activates, removing or swapping tokens is described below, and they'll help you keep track of who has or hasn't gone in a phase. If it has an advanced token, swap it for a combat token. If it has a sprint token but didn't engage the enemy in base contact, just get rid of its token. If it has a sprint token and engage the enemy in an assault base-to-base contact, then swap the sprint token for a combat token. But if you move through difficult terrain, you get a combat -1 token instead because you're hindered. And other units might have interactions that are different, like vehicles and walkers. And super heavy units can move through things, obviously. And command units move and don't engage the enemy in base-to-base contact. They discard their sprint token, but keep their Overwatch token. And then the Overwatch phase. So this is any unit that's got an Overwatch token. It's like it's first fire in Titanicus, right? You're basically just spending your turn getting ready to shoot. And you're going to do a shooting attack. And that's pretty simple. Nominate target, check line of sight, and see if it's in cover. Roll however many attack dice you have, right, from your weapons. This attack auto cannon would roll 2 at someone within 24 inches. Any hits would cause a pin marker to be applied to the unit. Roll to hit, any 8s, you get to roll additional die because they explode. Roll to damage, you have to beat its armor. So if its armor is 6+, then you got to try and beat that. So the higher the armor, the better. And then roll to save. If you have a save number, then your opponent gets to roll to save. So anything after that you do is number hits to the model, and if they can take more than 1 hit, they do. Otherwise, they are removed as a casualty. And there can be penalties with the hit roll, like if you're in cover, it's -1 to hit. That means it's going to be 1 harder. Target has the fly keyword, -1 if it's super heavy. Target has the stealthy keyword, or has a pin marker. Obviously, they're keeping their head down, but they're like not going to be combat effective. So the benefit is that they're hiding. And then roll damage for every hit you roll again, and if due to the modifiers of high armor value you can't, then you just discard the dice. Like if someone has a 9+ armor value because of some kind of modifier, then you just don't bother doing anything. But you can still apply effects like pin markers and stuff like that. So you still roll the dice to see if you get any hits, because sometimes it'll trigger things that is your natural special abilities. And then if you have a save, roll your save, then you remove your casualties. Pretty simple stuff. And combat and assault works relatively the same. Special rules for blast weapons, because there's a scatter die. Oh, I think I forgot to mention that at the beginning. There's a special D8 scatter die you don't get in here. And it has the numbers 3, 3, 4, 5, 6 on it, and then on targets, which are little blasts. It uses the top of the symbol as a scatter dice token. So basically what you would do is you would use 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 as being your numbers on your D8. You just use a D8 for this. And the top is obviously the direction still. But your 2 is going to count as a 3. And then you still have the 1 and then the 7, 8 are going to be your on-target model or numbers. So you could get that special dice. It didn't come in the Essentials box, but you could just fudge it by knowing what you need to roll. And that's used for scattering if you miss. And then the combat phase, all units involved attack simultaneously. So unlike shooting, it's not one-sided. Allocate hits, roll to hit, roll to damage, roll to save, remove your casualties, determine the winner. And it's simultaneous, so everybody fights even if they're removed as a casualty over the course of the fight. And then finally, you separate winners and losers take nerf tests. Whoever did the most damage wins, the loser might run away. And then vehicles and super heavies get separated. And units still in contact, the bases pile in, and they'll have a combat marker next turn because they're starting in combat. Pin markers obviously going to have some effects on people once you get them. So for instance, you always go for unit strength of like more than 1 to 1. So you're fixed at unit strength 1 because you're too busy freaking out to be able to hold an objective. You must be given an advance token. You get the following circumstances. If you lose half or more of your current number of bases to a single shooting attack, then you get a pin marker. If you lose an assault, you get a pin marker. Unit that's been hit by any weapons with the pinning keyword, even if no casualties are suffered, you get a pin marker. And if you survive being in a destroyed transport, you get a pin marker. So you gotta climb out of the wreckage. It's game over, man, game over. Yeah, and so here's some great pictures of some of the plague stuff that I'll be painting up. Fighting some of the Asterians. And that's some of the buildings we're talking about, these like modular buildings. And then some cool rules for terrain. You can occupy buildings, how to interact and damage terrain, because terrain's fully destructible, how to ride around a transport. And then we're in a scenario. So like I said, the core rules are real simple. It's mostly driven by keywords and unique stat blocks, and then the special tactical orders that you can do with your command points from your army. We've got our scenarios. So smaller games, 1,000 to 1,500 on a 4x4, and then we'll probably start with that. I'll probably paint like 1,000 or 1,500 point army to do the Let's Play with Bob. And then for larger games, you go up to a 6x4 of like 2,000 to 3,000 points. But that being kind of, I think, the ideal or the generally like accepted game size. And then we have our deployments. So running a random like 4 deployments, you're going to D8 for them and see which one's going to be your fighting edges. Place your objectives, and red are inactive, and green are active and dynamic. So they can change those objectives. They might have effects during the game, and then a static one is going to be the same all the time. And then scoring parameters. So this is a random generation for how the objectives get scored. Your reserve ratio. So how much reserves can happen in this battle? You're going to basically see how many guys can be put back. You know, what are your circumstances for playing with reserves? Then you make your recon roll, and you begin the game. Reserves might have a special deployment, so there's rules for that coming out. There's some fog of war rules as well, and then our army lists. So before you play a game, you're going to want to agree on your game size, and then pick a faction. Army lists contain the following stuff. So you have your troops, your specialists, your support, and your HQ, the commanders of your army. And when you build an army, you have to have an HQ, and the company structure is 2 to 4 troops, up to 4 specialists, 4 support, and 1 super heavy attached. And then transports are by how many units you have in your army. And that's the command structure. So pretty simple. And there's some additional rules, like you can have command units put into transports, called a command transport. These are advanced with advanced stealth technology and are trained to make the best use of terrain undetected. They must be deployed at the same time as the command unit, and the command needs to be within 3 inches of it. While the command unit's embarked on a command transport, they get both a sprint and overwatch token as normal, because they count as being a command unit, not the transport unit, which is kind of cool. So basically your commanders are more mobile, and they can get around, they get their own little specialty rides. And then some battlefield stratagems. They're all single use. And you can buy them to like get your last few points. One of the hard things with like a game like this is the actual point values are fairly blocky. And inside of a unit, there isn't a lot of customization. So it's nice to have something like this, have like a stratagem that you can buy, which will allow you to, one, kind of like put your thumb on the scale of the game a little bit by having these like little boosts, little feats that you can do outside of like the normal turn structure. But on top of that, you're also gonna have just a way to spend those last few points at the end of the game. So like I said, 6 armies. I'm not gonna go through all of them. I'm gonna look at the one I'm playing because that's useful for me, and it means that you guys have an idea of how this works. So going into the Plague. Come on, we're going through the name list. My God. So many armies. The Plague. All right, I love these guys. They're infected living dead. And the stage 1 mutants are basically the things that are leading them. Sometimes there's a stage 3 ghoul who might be leading them. This is just a little bit of background on them. The Plague Lords are basically like an infectious disease that takes over the the dead, and they turn into a variety of different things, up to like these giant, like huge berserker hand-to-hand zombie goods, which you can see right here. I do have the additional 3D print stuff from the crowdfund, which means I'll have some other units which aren't on the frame there. But if we're adding up what's on those 6 frames, and we look at troops, we have to have a leader, right? So we have to have our command unit. We can have like a stage 3 commander, a stage 1 lord, or a corruption. So I'm gonna have a stage 3 command leader. He's my heavy infantry. It's 30 points. And I can give him a plague command transport, a plague mule, which is one of those trucks, for 20 points. Let's say 50 points for that guy. Then I have to have 2 to 4 for my first company. Troops. And I've got some ghouls and some HMGs, some stage 3s with HMGs. So the ghouls are little zombie guys. They come in stands of 6. Right, I've got 3 of these stands, so let's say I'm going to take 2 of those for 220 points, and then 2 of the stage 3 HMGs for another 240 points. That's going to give me a grand total of 460 points already spent, plus the 50 I had up top, so I'm at 510 points. Specialists in here, I've got my Plague Striders. You get 3 of them in a squad, so I got 2 squads of these. So if I'm sitting at 500, what did I say, 510, another 2 squads of these, or let's say 1 squad of these for 105, so 615. I could take some zombies if I wanted to. You get 9 stands of zombies for 145 points. Actually, never mind. I think the ghouls actually are just the basic rifle guys. Oh, the HMG guys are separate. So I have HMGs and the ghouls are the guys with the little rifles. So I have zombies on top of this. So I'd add that in. So what we're looking at, we had the Plague Striders in for 615, so now we're at 660, 760, and we can do some transports and tanks. So 760, we can do an aberration unit of 3 aberrations, 760, 860, 965, no, 945. So I've only got a couple points left there, 65 points. Not a lot to spend it on, so I'll go back to the beginning here, and I'll spend it on some of those battlefield upgrades. And with 65 points, I could buy, let's say, Bombardment Fire for 30, and then Take and Hold. And that's 50, it's leaving me down 15. I get these 3, basically. And they're all single use. So buy those, you know, I'm painting up a leader with his tank. I'm painting up a unit of aberrations, so 3 stands of aberrations. I'm painting up a unit of Plague Striders for 3 stands of Plague Striders, so I'm looking at 8 models, plus these 9 stands of zombies. So 17 plus 24 stands of troops of ghouls. So 17, 41 models. 41 stands of stuff with tanks. And that's not really scratching what's in here. I'm also getting access to some special rules, like my army special rules, Contagion. After resolving an assault, roll a die for each enemy base removed. For each 7+, add 1 base of the appropriate type to your infantry or heavy infantry units involved in the assault. This may not take unit of above its starting bases. Place the base in coherency with the units they are joining. They can't be placed within an inch of the enemy unit unless the enemy unit has already engaged that unit. Any bases that can't be added aren't added. So basically, if you take casualties, you're getting guys back because you're infecting the enemy when you're fighting. Your army nerve is 7+. You don't have a great nerve for getting unpinned. It means you're going to take a lot of pin tokens. And you got no keywords. I have unflinching on the zombies, actually, which means they're a little more immune to pinning. And then Siege Orders, I can do Infection for 2. When a non-vehicle, non-super heavy unit activates in the movement phase, the unit has a 6+ save value until the end of the round. Place a status marker on the unit's reminder. So basically, you can buy a save for your guys because you notice they don't have any saves. So I can just make them real tough. Aura of Terror for 1. When a unit sprints and engages in base-to-base contact, the unit must be in command radius before it moves. The enemy unit is given a pin marker. Add the pin marker before any Overwatch fire against the sprinting unit if applicable. So basically you just like freak everybody out. It's like a shock move when you assault people. Or Tear Apart when an infantry or heavy infantry unit attacks in the assault. For this assault you get AP 1 or increased AP by 1 if they already have it. And then spend the command point before rolling to hit. So you don't know how many hits you get, but you can up the melee attacks of these guys basically. So like your ghouls can go and have an AP to their melee weapons, which they don't normally do. So their assault weapons, 1 die each, then gain AP. You definitely want it for your stage 3s to get 2 dice. Even though assault's only 6+, 2 dice each, double the amount of potential damage, which is great. And they're 9 stands. So again, simple army construction. You're just gonna follow that kind of like old school GW 3rd edition Force Org chart, right? You need HQ, You have some troop choices, then you can fill in the specialists and stuff after that. And you got tons of armies to pick out. And then we've got obviously a bunch of background for the Warpath universe, if that floats your boat. And we've got a pretty complete game in a book here. So it is everything you need to play. And a quick reference. So yeah, the Essentials box is the Essentials. This is pretty in line with all the Warpath stuff that's come out so far. Same dice system. It should be pretty easy and intuitive for people who've played the Mantic series of games before. The command point system is real simple. There's not a lot of like bookkeeping. There's the 3 core ones plus the 3 that you get for your army. So remembering 6 things is not too much battlefield information. And then the models are nice, like hip styrene plastic. I'm really excited to paint these because like they're gonna be dirty zombies. So they're gonna be super quick to paint. And we'll be able to get this on the table soon. So look forward to Let's Play coming up in the really near future from Bob. He grabbed the crowdfund, and that was why we were able to check this out today. So big thanks to him. And yeah, you'll see some Warpath on the table real soon. I think we're planning on getting back together in November, second week of November. So I got some painting to do. You'll see this on the paint table. And then as soon as this is all done up, we'll be able to throw it down. So see you next time for more GMG reviews. I'm Ash. Have a good one.